It's Kyle here. Today I'll be highlighting my 5 favorite nonfiction books that I read in 2022. Now I'm just saying these books were ones that I read in 2022, not that were published in 2022. So I just want to make that clear. And I'll be doing videos, similar videos for my favorite fiction novels, my favorite Star Wars books in 2022. So just keep an eye out for those on my channel. Hope you'll enjoy this video. And that being said, here are my 5 favorite nonfiction books that I read in 2022. First up is kind of a more local history book that I'm sure probably won't appeal to a lot of people, unless maybe you're very interested in the history of the American South or the state of Georgia specifically, or maybe you're from Georgia. But it's Georgia, A State History by Buddy Sullivan, and this book was actually commissioned by the Georgia Historical Society. So it's kind of very much an overview of the entire history of the state of Georgia. I really enjoyed it. I've lived in Georgia my entire life. My family's actually lived in Georgia for almost 200 years, so several generations. So I've always been very interested in local history. A lot of the stuff highlighted in this book I was familiar with, but there were a lot of stuff that I wasn't. Especially a lot of the info on the early political leaders in the state of Georgia, / colony of Georgia, when pretty much the entire state was Savannah and some towns around it. Kind of the various debates and what were the kind of main political topics that were really at forefront in that era of Georgia were very interesting. Really enjoyed the book. So I'd say it's one of those things, if you enjoy learning about the American South or even the state of Georgia, check that out. But what I really wanted to highlight this book for is encourage you to check out local history books wherever you're from. State, country, town, whatever. Like a lot of times we get focused on these big worldwide events or even big events in your country's history, but you kind of forget about like your local city's history or your local state or province's history. So I encourage you, if you're interested in nonfiction books, you enjoy those, check out those local books. They can be very, very fascinating, and they can definitely make you look at your surroundings in a completely different light, because a lot of times they're historical events that actually took place near where you live. So that's why I wanted to highlight that book. Number 4 on my list is Dead Wake, The Last Crossing of the Lusitania by Erik Larson. Erik Larson is probably my favorite nonfiction author. I really enjoy his work a lot. I've read several of his books. This is not my favorite of his. I still really enjoyed it, but it's not like my all-time favorite Erik Larson book. That is Devil in the White City. But I really enjoyed this book a lot. If you're not familiar with the Lusitania, it was a fairly big ship. Kind of think of the big cruise ship eras of like the Titanic and stuff like that. And it kind of talks about everything that went along with these big ships, how the rich used that to travel back and forth between the Americas and Europe, and how this ship got caught up in the worldwide struggle of World War I. So you get some World War I history, you get some kind of like societal history, and one thing I always enjoy about Larson a lot, he really boils down to the history to individuals who are actually involved. So instead of looking at the big picture type of stuff, which he does, he'll touch on the big picture stuff, but he very much makes these historical events feel more personable by focusing on these individuals who are actually involved with it. So a lot of this stuff is based on diary entries, letters that were written, stuff like that. So the people that are actually in the event, you feel like you get to know them. So a lot of times I always say Erik Larson's books feel like they're historical novels, not your typical nonfiction books. So if you usually don't like nonfiction, I think Erik Larson writes in such a way that you might enjoy it. Now, if you love history, I think you'll still actually love Erik Larson's books. But this was my favorite Erik Larson book that I read in 2022, Dead Wake. Next up, you have Into Thin Air by John Krakauer. This is a book about an expedition to climb Mount Everest that the author was actually involved with. And there's a disaster that happens during the expedition. This is not a spoiler, kind of outlines this on the back cover, so you kind of go in knowing that some really bad things are going to happen on this expedition. Very much, kind of reminds me of some other books like The Perfect Storm, or the true crime genre like In Cold Blood, where you're kind of really getting a look of a very historical event for a small group of people, and getting on a first-hand account from this individual who was actually a part of it. So you're getting a lot of the scientific side of things about what it is like to climb Mount Everest, which that's how it reminded me of The Perfect Storm a lot. In The Perfect Storm, you get a lot of stuff about what it is to be a fisherman, what it is, the science behind bad storms on the Atlantic, all that type of stuff. Here you get a lot of stuff like what's the impact on the human body of trying to climb Everest and stuff like that. What type of people does it attract? But then you're getting that one-on-one individual things like what's driving these individuals, what actually happened, who was at fault for the tragedy that took place on the mountain. So I would definitely highly recommend Into Thin Air by Jon Krakauer. Number 2 is How to Be Perfect, the Correct Answer to Every Moral Question by Michael Schur. If that name sounds familiar to you, he is the creator of The Good Place, also Parks and Rec, heavily involved in The Office, one of the, if not the top comedy mind on TV at the moment. Absolutely funny, so funny. And this book is really inspired by his work on The Good Place. If you're not familiar with The Good Place, is kind of the overall arching theme of that show is like, what does it mean to be a good person? And he did a lot of research into philosophy and to kind of help making sure the show explored that topic in an accurate way. And all that research kind of inspired him to write this book about and actually kind of examine it through his own life. What does it mean to be a good person? It's absolutely fascinating. So if you like philosophy, I think you'll enjoy it. If you like humor, you'll enjoy it. If you love The Good Place, this book will be absolutely perfect for you. So definitely check it out. And my favorite nonfiction book that I read in 2022 is The Hot Hand, The Mystery and Science of Streaks by Ben Cohen. So this book actually looks at the phenomenon that I think most people who play in sports are familiar with, which is the hot hand, or the feeling that you're on a streak. So for basketball, which I played most of my life, is that feeling you get you're playing a game and you feel like you just can't miss a shot. Everything you're going to put up is going to go in. And basically this book explores, is this an actual thing that happens, or is it just our own minds playing trick on us? And the thing that I really enjoyed about this book was it examines the phenomenon of the hot hand and other things outside of sports. So authors, musicians, scientists, and kind of looking at in all these fields. A lot of times there is this phenomenon of people feeling there's this brief stretch where all my great work happened in 2 or 3 years. It felt like everything I was doing was just absolutely turned out amazing. And again, then you kind of rotate between these stories of these people feeling like they're having a hot hand, and then scientists actually talking about is the hot hand real? This is why we don't think it's real. This is why we think it's real. Absolutely fascinating. I loved it. For somebody again who's played basketball most of my life and very much has felt like I had a hot hand, it was very much interesting. It was so interesting, I should say, to read a book that actually explored was what I was feeling real, or is my mind playing tricks on me? And I won't spoil what the conclusion of the book draws, but highly recommend this book. So that is my favorite nonfiction book that I read in 2022, The Hot Hand by Ben Cohen. In the comment section below, let me know what was your favorite nonfiction book that you read in 2022. Look forward to seeing what books y'all enjoyed in the year. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. If you have yet, please subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate the support. Thanks for watching. I'll see you the next time, and happy reading.